Hi, I'm Frieda Anderson, and I'm here at the AQS show in Daytona Beach, Florida. Oh my gosh, it's so beautiful here. You should come to this show. I'm teaching several fusing classes here, along with a dye class and a machine quilting class. But I'm going to share with you a little tip about a fused binding that my students are learning in my classes. So I'm going to show you how I do a fused binding on my art quilts, like all the little quilts behind me. So these are just a few of my fused patterns, and you can buy these on my website at freestyle.com, F-R-I-E-S-T-Y-L-E. This one's cardinals, and here's my fused binding that I've put on this using a decorative blade. Let me show you another one. Here's the fused binding on my pattern tulips. Oh, let's pull that off. And you can see that I've used one of the decorative blades there. I've also used the decorative blade to cut out the background behind the tulips. And on this design, I use the decorative blade on my leaves as well. And we're going to use I'm going to show you to use the decorative blade on the binding. This is one more of my designs called Under the Sea. And it's got the decorative blade here on this outside, on this little element right here, and then again on the binding. So let me show you how I do this very fast, fun, fused binding. I'm going to start out with my fused fabrics, and I need a piece of fabric that's at least an inch longer than my finished quilt. So if my little quilt measures 20 inches wide, I want my binding fabric to be 21 inches by 6 inches wide, 21 inches long by 6 inches wide. And then I've used the decorative blade and a straight blade to cut out my binding, and they're 1 1/4 inches wide. If you don't remember all this, there's a tutorial on my website you can refer to. And then I'm going to apply that to my squared up little quilt. Imagine that this is a squared up finished little quilt. And I've quilted it and then squared the edges, and I've come in and I've marked with a 1/2 inch all the way around my quilt on the top, and that's going to be the guide for me to place the binding. So I'll take this over to my ironing surface and I'll put it on top of a pressing sheet, or in this case I've used parchment paper. And then I can just take my fused binding and I can cover up that 1 inch, 1/2 inch mark with my decorative edge, and then just lay it down so it covers it on the other end and fuse it in place. You want to make sure that that's underneath there, and then I would pick it up and fold that to the back and fuse it in place. I want to do the opposite sides first, and it doesn't matter which two opposite sides, and then when I do the last opposite side, because I made it 1 inch longer than the finished edge, when I turn it over to the back, I can turn in a 1/2 inch there and then fold down my back and fuse that in place. I usually take a minute and cut a little piece of fusible and stick it right there, so when I fold that down and fuse it in place, it stays put. And eventually I'm going to go all the way around the front, and I'm going to top stitch that down all the way around the front. And that's a quick way to bind your small decorative wall quilts, art quilts, with the fused decorative binding. Like I said, if you didn't catch all of that, you can get it on my website under tutorials at freestyle.com. But maybe next year you'll come and join us here in Daytona Beach and come and take some fun fuse classes.